Hello, everyone, and welcome to the For Pete's Sake Peterborough Real Estate Podcast. I'm David O'Connor with eXp Realty, and with me is
Alex Blancard with eXp Realty.
and today we're going to take you through the November 2022 market stats, but we want to do a little bit more and just show you the numbers. We wanted to actually break them down a little bit and explain what they mean. And as a nice little treat for everyone, we are going to do our tip of the month and also our listing deal of the month. Hey man, I'm excited. I'm excited to do this. I know we were talking about doing something like this for a while. So yeah, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, let's hop into it.
Let's just hop right into the stats.
All right, folks. So let's hop into the Peterborough real estate market for the month of November in 2022. What's really cool about these stats is that we've just pulled specifically residential sales for the month. So some other stats might mix in, county sales or maybe some commercial sales in there, and it kind of really skews the number. But what we wanted to do was really just focus on the residential market for the city of Peterborough. So yeah, talk to me about 2021 versus 2022 for November, Dave.
All right, so we're seeing the average sale price has declined by 16% year over year. New listings have declined by 7%, but here's the big numbers. The number of sales has declined by 56%, and days to sell, so days on market, has increased by 90%.
Wow. So it's a bunch of decreases, and then it's taken almost twice as long to sell your home this year compared to last year. And yeah, you mentioned kind of the biggest factor there was the decline of 56%. Go into that a little bit more. Why is that a significant number?
Well, it just shows that there's not a lot of active buyers in this market. We could unpack that, but I'd say one of the major reasons is there's a lot of tentative buyers out there because of all these Bank of Canada increases that have happened, with the most recent being just a couple of days ago, another half point. So we've seen about five rate hikes this year. I think the buyers are waiting on the sideline, waiting for the market to stabilize. There's also the looming potential global recession, and again, we're seeing a lot of tentative buyers. I don't know if you're having this experience, but a lot of my clients, they're talking about, hey, let's push it to the spring. The buyers are like, let's come back in the spring, and the people who want to list they're also holding to the spring. So we're seeing a lot of tentative buyers in this market.
Yeah, for sure. I'm absolutely in the same boat. Yeah, let's hop into these November stats, and then we can kind of look at things on a global picture and kind of what might be influencing these stats and why we're seeing what we're seeing in the real estate market. So without further ado, average sale price, the big number that everybody is interested in. We saw a decline this month. We came in at $575,494,000. And we're about $65,000 cheaper than we were last month. So that's a pretty big hit. So I mean, if you look at the graph there, you can really see your peaks in March and February of 2022, and then beside the latest bar, you actually see a little bit of an increase, and that was the October numbers. So we actually went up in October, but it seems like maybe that was just a blip, and we did see that proper correction in November. In terms of which way the curve and the distribution is heading, which is kind of like this, and we're kind of on the downturn. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think we didn't have much of a fall market this year. It looked like when we got into late September, things started to pick up, and I just wasn't sure what kind of fall market we had, and then it just slowed right down. And I find November is the third or fourth busiest real estate month, at least for me personally, and a lot of stats I've seen over the years. But it was a really slow November, and as we trend towards the holidays, things always slow almost to a halt for about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Everybody's doing the holiday thing, so nobody's really got real estate on their mind. What I find interesting about this graph is it goes back to 2018, so you can kind of see, look at the increase from 2018. It's pretty much a steady increase, and you see that a lot. Real estate tends to move in cycles, so we were headed up for the last 4 years, and now we're kind of starting to see a downturn. But yeah, let's move on, and let's talk about the number of new listings. So as we were just kind of touching on it, the activity. Look at this graph. So you can see the number of new listings and the peaks every single year. So it tends to peak in that spring to fall season, and then you really see those declines towards the start and the end of each year. How did November do? Well, we had 87 new listings in the month of November. And if you look at the last 4 years, going back to 2018, 87 really tends to be, pretty on par with what's happened, historically in the last four years in Peterborough. So 87 isn't really an outlier there.
Yeah, we jump to the next one though.
Yeah, and this is where we really start to see the outlier. Again, you can kind of see that same distribution we saw with the listings, where you're getting a lot of activity in those spring to fall months. And we saw 51 sales. So that is a huge decline. If you look at what we're seeing in the past couple of years, maybe an average of around 80, 88-ish on average, and we were at 51 for the month of November. So a huge decline there. Again, I think it was around 53% or 56%, if I remember correctly. That's a huge decline. And that just goes to show you that, yes, the listings are staying the same, but there's not a lot of demand out there. We're not seeing a lot of buyers that are looking to purchase these properties. And that's where you start to see the prices drop. And, whether that is a combination of scarcity in the market and people kind of not knowing what's going to happen with the future. You touched on the recession, whether that's a factor of affordability. And because, affordability, it's so tough right now to get a mortgage with the current interest rates, it's really limiting people with the amount of real estate that they can buy based on their incomes, because we're not seeing the incomes, increase at the same rate that we're seeing these interest rates increase. And I think it's really hurting, buyers in the market, and they're not sure what to do. They're not sure what they have to play with.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for buyers in this market. They're just really focusing on that rate increase. What they don't realize is that the mortgage payment on a home in today's market is very similar to what it would have been back in February. But the difference is rates have gone up, 3.5%, 4%, but prices have dropped, on average around 30%, 35% in some markets. And you're not going in competition. You're not going against, 20, 25 different buyers. And as I said, your deposit's going further. So again, for the people in the right financial situation that have the deposit and can afford the rates, there's some really good opportunity. I also feel like buyers got a little beat up in that spring market early this year.
Oh yeah.
Some clients lose out on 10 competitions, but it's tough when you're going against 30, 35 offers, and that whole strategy of holding extremely low below market price. I just rubbed a lot of buyers the wrong way. So it's funny it's interesting that in the same calendar year, we shifted from a heavy seller's market, where the sellers were in complete control, where people were going in without conditions, right? Buyers were taking on all the risk. And now you jump up, to later in the year, and now we're in a temporary, I think, buyer's market.
So what would you tell a buyer right now that says they want to wait until spring? Let's say they're a first-time buyer. I mean, obviously it depends on their situation, and it is really tough right now with your pre-approvals, because you're still having to qualify with that stress test. So you're still having to qualify 2% higher than the 6% mortgage rates right now. And yes, it's great for down payment, but if you are a first-time buyer, is it best right now to wait until spring, or is it best to get in there right now? Are these prices going to continue to fall?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, or the $1 billion question. I would say I would advise them, obviously, go get your pre-approval, see what budget you have to play with. I always tell them within your means, like what can you comfortably spend within your means. There is a scenario where seems like a lot of people are waiting for the spring market. If the Bank of Canada, who's being very transparent, by the way, about their increases, so if they say, hey, you know what, we're going to hold fast around these rates, or we might see some declining rates later in 2023, then what's going to happen is all these people that have been waiting, that didn't take part in the fall market, we have the potential to have a very busy spring market. And there's a good chance that prices could start to increase there.
How many buyers are going to come out of the shadows, that have been waiting for the spring? Once the Bank of Canada hops on and goes, okay, no more. Tiff Macklem says we're not doing any more rate hikes. How many buyers are going to come out of the shadows going, okay, I have to work with a 6.5, maybe a 6.25, mortgage rate. Let's go see what I can buy.
Yeah, I'd say, again, back to that first-time home buyer, if an opportunity presents itself in this market, the pros are, you're not against as much competition, right? You might be paying like that higher rate, but if it's within your means, what does it really matter if you're only holding this asset for multiple years?
Yeah.
Jump to April, May, when prices start to go up, rates will start to trend down. But what does it matter when it's an appreciating asset that you're going to hold for multiple years? That's the investor kind of side of things. But people sometimes can't see past just the rate increases.
Absolutely, yeah. And I actually had a quote here that I wanted to read from a website called Better Dwelling that focuses on Canadian housing. And we'll put the link below the video so you guys can check out the article. But they said this, assets are worth what they can be liquidated for. That means a regular flow of buyers need to be both willing and able to pay the current price. As credit becomes cheaper, leverage rises, and it's easier to absorb rising prices. So what that means basically, as the cost of borrowing is lower, i.e. lower interest rates, it's easier to absorb rising prices. So buyers are able to purchase a higher purchase price or a higher average price of a home because the cost of credit is cheaper. Now, on the flip side, as credit becomes more expensive, leverage is reduced, and it makes it harder to pay those higher prices. To ensure flow in the market, prices have to fall or buyers need to become wealthier. So as credit gets more expensive, as it costs more money to borrow, basically what has to happen is buyers either need to become wealthier and have a higher capital, or these prices need to fall in order to ensure a proper flow and a healthy market.
And that's what we're seeing.
Absolutely.
Because I think as you just, what was the average price for Peterborough City? Was 580?
576, yeah.
Yeah,
or 575.
At the peak, late February, early March, I believe it was up to almost 800.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump ahead here.
Yeah, so days to sell, this is kind of an interesting one as well. What I love to see about this graph is you can kind of see there in 2019, the days to sell were not sitting on the market for 29 days might seem absurd if you look at 7 days to sell in February 2022, which is absolutely nuts. But when you look over the last 4 years, you see that 29 days to sell, sitting on the market for a month before you sell, isn't really abnormal. It's not strange to have to sit on the market for a month before you sell your house. But if you're comparing it to, February, when homes were getting scooped up sometimes in a day, maybe it seems weird, but looking back long term, it's pretty normal.
Yeah, when you're in a more balanced market, they tend to sit in the market for closer to a month. We're back in February. If listing wasn't holding for a week, then it would sell within 24, 48 hours because the massive demand we saw back in January, February. But we're not quite there, but especially if an agent was new to the industry and they'd never seen a market like this before. That's why I like talking to the agents that have been in the game for a long time. They were there for 2008, or even the ones that were back in the early 90s, and they're all relaxed in this kind of market. Some of the newer
Absolutely.
agents are wait. I don't just throw a listing up and wait for the offers to come in. So this is where
Yeah,
agents need to buckle down and work, market your property. Show value. It's kind of market we're in now.
absolutely. So months of inventory. This is kind of an interesting stat. It's a bit of a strange stat because it's a ratio between the amount of new listings for the month and the number of sales. And what this does, it's basically an absorption rate of real estate. So right now we had a months of inventory for November at 3 months of inventory. What does that mean? It means that if no properties were listed on December 1st, if nobody listed their homes forever, it would take 3 months to sell the current inventory that is available on the market based on how quickly these homes are selling. So what does this stat tell us? Well, it tells us what kind of market we're in. This is a really cool stat that can kind of show people based on the absorption rate what market we're in. And the general rule is that anywhere really below 3 or 4 is your seller's market. Then you've got around 3 to 6, which is a balanced market, and anything above 6 months of inventory is considered a buyer's market. So although you mentioned this earlier, it feels right now like we're in a buyer's market. Like these buyers hold the cards. Like you can get a property for under list price and throw all kinds of conditions on there, and you can pick and choose which home you like, which is characteristic of a buyer's market.
Yeah.
But the stats actually tell us that we're in a seller's market. So that's what's crazy right now. And that's something that we haven't seen. Like you look back to February and you can see the lowest peak on the graph there. I believe it was below 1. That must have been in October to December there. It was below 1 months of inventory. Homes were getting listed and getting scooped like that. Talk about a seller's market. That was a seller's market. That's as seller's market as it gets.
Yeah, this when we were talking about this earlier, has easily become my favorite stat.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like equivalent to baseball WAR.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or something
Absolutely.
like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
and just to recap, so if the market froze today and there was no new listings, it would take 3 months or just under 3 months to burn through the current inventory that is on the market.
That's right. Based on the current rate of sales.
Which would put us technically into a seller's market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, let's watch that number. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it changes. I mean, you can see over the past 4 years, I mean, we haven't really gone above 3. A couple of times we went at 2, 3, but we haven't really gone above 3. So let's see what happens. So yeah, now let's go on the tip of the month. So Dave, tell me, what's the tip of the month?
So the tip of the month, so we talked about how technically it's a seller's market, but really it's a false buyer's market, we're calling it. So because we're in more of a buyer's market, there is now an appetite to get that sale of property condition. So right now, if you're a buyer and you also have something to sell, it's a tricky market because you might find the perfect property, but the issue you're going to have is, well, now I got to go to market and I got to sell my home, and if that doesn't sell, the purchase will fall through. So when we're in a seller's market, you'll almost never see an offer with a sale of buyer's condition, like a buyer's offer. There is an appetite for that condition right now. And the tip is when you put in that condition, there's an escape clause that comes with it. And what this does is the seller doesn't want to tie up their property for 3-4 weeks for this condition. So you put an escape clause in for the purpose of the seller. But the reason why you do that, if you don't, it will never get accepted, and they'll sign it back and they'll put it in themselves. So the tip is for that escape clause, just one little word change, because how it reads is if another offer comes in, right, that it reads that the buyer now has to remove this condition. But there's also a version that says all conditions. So the tip is to make sure when you're submitting an offer that you use the word this condition as opposed to all. What that basically means is if you have other conditions, you have a finance and inspection, if it says all, you have to remove all 3 of your conditions and go in firm and take on all the risk. But if you put in the word this, you remove the SOBP is what we call it, and then you still have the opportunity to do your financing and inspection. Now, back 2016, when we were in a bit of a seller's market, there was a bully move by a lot of agents to start striking out this and put in all, and it kind of became commonplace. But the first thing I do when I see that, I cross out all and I put in this. So that's my tip when it comes to the sale of buyer property conditions.
Yeah, so let's break that down a little bit, and just so I'm representing a buyer named Sally, and you're the seller. So you're selling your house, and Sally wants to go in with a sale of buyer's property condition, a financing condition, and a home inspection condition. So she wants to submit these 3 conditions on her offer, because I have advised her that that's probably best practice considering the nature of the situation. So she submits that offer. And we've got an escape clause in there. What that means is we have a certain number of days to sell Sally's property. So we submit this offer. It's got those 3 conditions, and we have 4 weeks now to sell Sally's property. Now, in the event that you get another offer, so let's say Jeff brings an offer, and Jeff brings an offer onto Dave's property. Now we have 48 hours to either waive the sale of buyer's property condition, or we don't get your house. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what would happen is, so I'm the selling agent. Another offer comes in that is as desirable or more, maybe has more desirable terms or a better price point. We like that offer more. So we have to give notice to the first buyer because they're sitting in first position. And depending how it's written, it's usually 48 hours, but I've seen it at 24, or some people try and push it to 72 hours. What happens is when the buyer who has the first position offer gets that notice, they then have that amount of hours to remove that condition, or they get bumped. And then the new buyer goes into first position. If the escape clause is written that all conditions have to be removed, you just agreed to go firm.
Right.
Potentially for an offer coming in that has a finance and inspection. So that new buyer now has the opportunity to take on less risk and have a home inspection and have financing. But you just have to waive all of your conditions, and now you're taking on a lot of risk because you just lost your opportunity to finalize with your bank, and you just lost the opportunity to get the home inspection. So that's why that one little word change makes a massive difference in that situation.
Right. And that is changing waive all conditions to waive this condition. Is that correct? Yeah.
That one little word change. So I'd say be very mindful. This is your agent should be catching this for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And here we go, buddy.
Yeah. Let's talk about the deal of the month. So, I mean, we've got a pretty cool property here. It's listed by Jason Blondin. It came active yesterday. We actually went to go take a look at it. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous property listed at $499,900. You don't really see that that often. And what's so cool about this property is look how close you are to Peterborough. So this little green area right here that you see is Haroldtown Conservation Area. It's probably one of my favorite places to go for a walk in the area, and you're literally just around the corner from it. So incredible location. Again, you're maybe 10 minutes outside of Peterborough, so you've got access to the city 10 minutes away, but just look at what you're surrounded by. Just gorgeous farmers fields, and it's a huge house. It's over 1,700 square feet. It's again, gorgeous backyard, and it's got a basement, which it could allow for a potential secondary suite. I mean, there would need to be some things that you changed with the basement, but you could have that secondary suite in there for a second source to income. You've got a double garage that's attached to the house. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we talked about this. I'm going in a couple hours with to take some clients through this one, but I'm assuming they're getting a lot of activity on this. If you're watching this on the stream, it's probably still active, but I bet dollars to donuts that this will be gone by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Speaking of donuts, we had talked about this. We'll do a little challenge on each episode, and I thought for this week. Now we can't disclose sale prices, but you and I will offline. We'll talk about where we think this one will sell. The winner, again, we won't be disclosing any prices, but we'll let you know who won. And on the next episode, the winner gets to pick the Tim Hortons donut a little Canadian content that the other one has
Yeah.
to have on the stream. So
yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's just say over or under. I'll let you go first because you're older than me, so you get to go first. So do you think it's going to go over 499.9 or under?
Yeah, again, we can't talk like exact prices, don't want to influence it too much, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that this one is going to go over the current list price, which we don't see a lot in this market. Now, just so people know, this is going to be an outlier. This is going to be a bit of an anomaly, I believe, in this market, because the vast majority of properties, things are sitting. This one isn't holding, but I still think it's going to drum up a lot of activity and probably sell within 3 to 4 days.
Yeah, Jason Blondin did a fantastic job with this property. I guess that means that I am stuck with saying that it will go under list or at list price.
Oh no, I was saying offline we can talk about where we think this one will land. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll be a little bit more fair. So we'll go offline. We won't discuss it openly.
Then I'm not stuck eating a Boston cream or something.
So you're still in the game. But
okay.
No, you're eating a double chocolate.
Oh, perfect.
So there you have it. That's our value pick of the month, and that's it for the first episode of the our new podcast.
Yeah, guys. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you got some value out of that. We will put our contact information below, and feel free to reach out. Do you have any questions about what's going on with the Peterborough market? Do you have any questions about real estate, even the Canadian real estate market, and what's kind of happening with interest rates, what it means to you, anything like that? Just feel free to reach out. We're here to help, and we love to help.
Yeah, we'll have our information. You can reach out to either of us or throw it in the comments, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. And we don't even mind popping on here and doing a Q&A session as well. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you for jumping on. Appreciate it. Looking forward to doing these with you. And I'll let you sign it off.
Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for joining, folks. And until next time, that's all, folks.